screen reader says quite a bit of stuff, and I might have the speed cranked up kind of fast too, but people that really get used to using the screen readers crank up the speed a lot. So it's like really, really fast, because a lot of the text is kind of repetitive, and the voice is kind of robotic too. So it's always going to be the same, like the pronunciation of everything is the same. So after a while, your ear gets attuned to that and can pick up on things really quick, and you can hear everything really quickly. And that's how they get through the page faster too, because it takes a long time to listen to all the text. So being able to speed it up really helps. So let's see if we can hear how this form sounds. So it says first name field required, edit, autocomplete blank. So all those things kind of give it information about the screen reader user information about this input here. They've got the name field labeled, so it says the label name, and then it says required, because in the markup they actually have required on that input element. Visually we can see it's required because it's got that asterisk next to it. Then it also says, let's see. It says it's blank right now, so the field is empty. You can start to type in it.
I'm a little confused. So I can't see, but I can hear.
Right.
Okay. Right. Okay. I'm trying to understand the person. The person can't see on that person, but they can hear. How are they filling it out? Like, how do you know you spelled your name right? Like, what's the...
So every time you type a letter as well, it'll also speak back feedback. So I just put A. Oh, that's not showing up.
So deaf people actually use the internet.
Oh, wow. The text is white. That's not good.
Yeah.
The text is white on white.
Or maybe it's just light and you can't see it because of the screen. The monitor might be. I don't know, but you can read the placeholder.
So blind people are using the internet?
Oh,
yes.
Yes. A lot.
Okay, that's why I'm like, what is she talking about? Why? What?
Yeah, it's thanks to this technology, really, and it's also the way that you present your information, though, on the page, too. Because like we said earlier, if you don't have a label associated with this input, it's just going to say input blank. And it's not going to say first name. It's not going to say required. It's not going to say all those things. So that's kind of why you want to install something like this, maybe, and try it out on your plugin or your theme if it has like a form, or if it's a calendar form, you know, something kind of more complex. This screen reader that I'm using right now is a free one. Well, I don't know if you have PC or Mac, but on PC, this one works. It's called NVDA. You can look that up. If you have a Mac, there's a screen reader that comes on that one called VoiceOver.
And you said VoiceOver?
And VoiceOver is free on Macs. Yep. You just have to enable it in your accessibility settings and turn it on there. So let's get to the last thing.
Last thing that is required to also complete blank. Email file is required to also complete blank.
Something else I like to do with the placeholder text is I like it when it disappears when you've actually clicked into it, so it doesn't look like it's already filled out with information. Like these ones, I click into it, but the placeholder text doesn't go away. And you can just do that by changing the place color text, like I showed earlier, to white when the input has focus. Or changing the opacity to 0, I suppose would probably be better, right? Oh, questions is spelled wrong. And did you hear how the screen reader said that?
Yes,
Yes, it does.
You might have to slow it down for them.
Yeah, it's kind of fast.
Just like you can learn how to speed read, if you're using this day in and day out, if you're actually like blind and this is how you get around, you'll learn how to speed listen. So it's really difficult gibberish for a lot of us. Not used to.
This might be too slow now. This is too slow.
Your comments / case it and star edit multi-line required blank.
So then on this input it says it's a multi-line, because it's a bigger text area.
And it's really easily listening to the questions is Casey tones. Good thing. Spell check.
Spanish.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. You might have text in other languages on your pages, and if you do, there's a tag that you can put on that text area to indicate that it's in another language. The screen reader doesn't know by default. It's going to probably default to English if it's an English location, but if you've got like just a few paragraphs in Spanish or something else, you can put lang equals ES is the Spanish abbreviation. And in that way, the screen reader it'll put a different library of text in there basically, and it'll pronunciate things correctly. Because in English, we don't know how to pronounce some of those letters and characters and things like that. Some languages are even, instead of going from left to right, like we read, they go right to left. And if that's the case, you can also change the direction of the language on that same thing. So it'd be, the tag is dir, I think, equals, and then you can do right to left, RTL, or left to right is LTR.
Is that tag for the page as a whole, or is it?
You can put it on the page as a whole if you put it on the HTML tag, but if you've just got a little section that's different, you can just put it around that one, put it on the parent element of that one.
So you can put it on your div tag or section tag. You can pick up just a block quote that's in a different language.
Submit letter. List your comments. Submit letter.
You
Your
can
comments / cases.
Okay.
Are those CAPTCHA things, like a lot of them now have pictures, you know, pick which ones have a storefront. I saw one of those recently. Are those like hard for people to use with disabilities? Or?
Yeah, pretty much every CAPTCHA is going to cause some barriers. They're always really difficult. The Google one is probably the most.
This is probably the best that you're going to find.
Right.
But I wasn't able to answer it.
Something to consider.
I'm not too sure why.
So that's what's going to be a problem. And that's a problem not with the CAPTCHA, but with the form itself, how it implemented that CAPTCHA. She wasn't able to actually get to it when she was tabbing through. And so she wouldn't actually be able, she can't select it,
Right.
She can't actually click on that.
It's just a bit. Not too sure why.
Okay, Google has this entire department. They're really two initiatives that Google is getting really serious about. And when Google gets serious about something, we all get serious about it as web developers. Is accessibility and security. And so that's why we all have to have HTTPS on our websites now.
Page speed as well. They're pushing a lot.
Loading up how quickly your page loads.
There's actually a book out that's rather interesting, talking about your internet page load speeds and how it relates to kind of saving the environment in a way. Because you're using
What's the book called?
something about sustainability, like, you know what I'm talking about?
No, you're talking about looking it up for you.
It's gonna look it up. It's actually an O'Reilly book, and they're one of our sponsors today. So there's actually a lot of goodies over there. Feel free to take swag items from O'Reilly. Okay. While you're looking that up, we'll move on to the next item. And that's, when you're looking for a theme, you can actually search for accessibility-ready themes. Now, generally, these themes are a lot more accessible than the other ones, but they still might have, some things here and there that could be a little bit better. But on the whole, I found them to be much better. And I can kind of show you as well the difference between one that has that accessibility ready check and one that doesn't. Yeah, Designing for Sustainability.
Designing for Sustainability by O'Reilly.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a green little gecko. And all the O'Reilly books have their mascot. It's a gecko.
So there's some browser plugins, and there's also WordPress plugins you can install that will check for about about 30% of the web content accessibility guideline checkpoints on your site automatically, so you don't have to do that yourself. So on this page, if I go, I have installed this HTML code sniffer, and it's a bookmarklet. And basically it's returning just 14 errors, which is, it's pretty decent. When I showed the other one that's not accessible, it'll have a lot more. But at the same time, I think this was the page where I didn't have, yeah, I can't see any of my focus dates. So even though this page is more technically accessible than a lot of the other themes might be, it still has that, which is a pretty big barrier for people using keyboard only and are sighted. Another plugin or bookmark that is Totally, TOCA11Y.
TOTA11Y.
This one only has 5. This, so that when this theme was pretty good. The one that we were using that vision test on, because the banner was automatically rotating. Now this one does not have the accessibility tag on it, so you can see it has 155 errors, just caught by the automatic checker. And if you also remember that the automatic checkers only catch about 30% of the errors. So there's another 70% that we have to test manually to see what else could be wrong with this.
That's what the notices are. Those are things that you can kind of say, hey, here are places that you need to look. There could be an error here. This is places that will usually trip you up, but I can't. The AI just isn't right there yet to be able to give you a good.
It's flagging it as a warning and saying it needs a human to verify if this is actually an issue or not. So going back to so this one has a drop down. Now this is one of the accessible themes. And I can actually get to the items in the drop down using my keyboard only. It doesn't really show focus on that main one, but I can hit enter and then pick the other items. And this other one that wasn't, I actually cannot click on these main nav items. So I can see where they're at there, but I'm hitting enter and like absolutely nothing is happening. So I can't even get to their main nav items at all. But if I hover over them, yeah, you can with the mouse. So now down here as well, they have the drop down with the mouse. Let's see where. So the items don't appear, but you can go to the page. How they've chosen to handle it is the drop downs automatically appear when you get focus on the main level one. So you can click through to those. thing to consider is in the menu is the mobile, the way it looks on mobile devices. So this one has the word menu, which is great. Sometimes you'll see it's just an icon up there, and not everyone knows what that icon means. That means menu, just the 3 lines, or there could be any number of other icons up there that you've decided are functionality on your site. But having the text along with it really helps people make that connection as to what this item's going to do. Not everyone can relate to the images. As well, there's some people that use like voice commands to browse the internet, and in that case, they actually will speak, like they'd say, click, tell me more, or click menu. But if that menu was an icon of something instead of the word, they might not know what to say with their voice dictation software to make that item activate.
Just out of curiosity, if it is adaptive like that, isn't it still going to be in the actual div or something associated with menu anyway? Even though it is, it does
might
change?
be. It might be behind the scenes still associated as a menu, but visually, if you still can't also
Sure.
make the connection, it's still going to be leaving out some people using just that other specific assistive tag.
I see. Okay.
Menu might have been a bad choice here, but like on the edit page, like work and services and ideas, if there was just icons for like, there's multiple, we can all sit around and probably not have a common icon of this is the icon for work,
Right.
this is the icon for services. Picture there, like, well, what do you say? Like, what does that mean? And so.
So there's also a lot of things that you can put in your content that will affect accessibility. So say you've picked your theme, it's good, your plugins are good, now you're going in there and you're starting to add all of your content. So one of the most important issues to address is images and media. If you're blind or hard of hearing, having captions or audio description in the video is a good alternative. Text and images is really crucial. It's not difficult to add them either, but it's more difficult to decide what text to put in the image. So there's this image tree from the W3C that's pretty handy. You can kind of determine, does the image have text in it? If it doesn't, then maybe the image has something else in it. But then if it does, it'll kind of give you some ideas of what to put in that alt text. And I'll just go through a couple examples as well here. So if your image has text in it, so if it's like a logo or something like that, you can just put the word that you see in the image in the alt text. You don't have to say that it's an image of this or it's a logo of that. It's easier when it lands on that. Like you heard it say when it landed on the inputs, it kind of gives you more information about the element. So it says this is an image already. So you don't need to duplicate that information. So you'll just end up slowing them down a little bit. If the image is like an icon, but it's also inside of a link that has text in it, that's just more of a decorative image there. You don't need to have alt text that says this is an image of a shopping cart, because then the screen reader will say something like add to cart, shopping cart, kind of also be a little bit repetitive. If you have an image that's like a photograph or something that kind of invokes some feeling, is kind of descriptive to your site, maybe it could even be a picture of like the inside of your building or location, and you kind of want to give people an idea of what it looks like in there. In your alt text, you'll want to kind of describe that for people that can't see, because they're still going to come to your location and maybe want to get around and kind of get an idea of how it looks, or it might be an image of people that's kind of got a lot of information in it. So kind of something that an analogy that I do is, pretend you're talking on the phone with a friend and you're talking about an image of the two of you from way back in the day, back in grade school or something. Your friend can't see the image, but she might have like memories of that time. So you kind of describe what's in the photo. You start with the subject matter, and you might say where it's at. It's at the school. You can see our lockers in the background or something like that. Just to kind of lead people's emotion and get them to really understand what's in the picture. So I have an example of that. So say you can't see this image, but you're hearing it described as a large bald eagle proudly soars with a wide open wingspan against a white overcast sky. Now, does that paint a picture in your mind of that image? And also keep in mind, not everyone who's blind was born blind. A lot of the times people still have a lot of good memories of things that they've seen, and being able to really kind of bring them into the picture, bring them in, is really helpful for them. It makes them feel very included. So when we actually go to look at the image, it's exactly probably what you had in your mind. This image is really plain and simple. So let's do one more that's a little bit more complex. So this one is, two elk stand on their hind legs facing one another. Their facial expressions suggest confrontation. The rest of the herd grazes in a lawn between residential streets. So that's a few sentences to describe this image, but you kind of get an image in your mind of what that might look like? You're right, it is. Okay. With media, we want to make sure we provide transcripts for audio and videos, provide captions and audio descriptions for videos, and test the player controls to make sure you can access them with the keyboard, just like we were looking through all the navigation links and the like. Adding captions and transcripts adds a major SEO benefit as well, because search engines can crawl that text in your caption files, but they don't get anything directly out of your video. You just put it out. WordPress has a couple options for embedding the media. YouTube is pretty accessible if you go that route, but SoundCloud is technically accessible, so that automated tool will come back that it is, but there's no visible focus, so it's going to make it more difficult to use for sighted keyboard people. So I briefly talked about this, but we want to test our plugins. All plugins that either take input, like that have forms on them, return some sort of response, or generate content. Any plugin like that we want to thoroughly test. So does the plugin add new features like a calendar or a contact form, or does it modify the existing features that were already accessible on WordPress, like the search and comment form? So make sure there's a couple plugins you can install that will look at your pages and kind of give you that high-level automated testing results. So WP Totality, it runs only about 6 tests, but they're really important high-level ones. The Access Monitor by 10 is really a lot more robust. It runs 62 tests. And then there's also a really great plugin called WP Accessibility. This plugin, instead of just telling you where the errors are on your pages, it'll actually attempt to fix some of these errors. So even if you do have a theme that's not fully accessible, installing this plugin will do things like insert those skip links that we saw on some of them, like the first link that said skip to content. It'll help you set the language and direction on your page if you're unsure if it's in there or not. It will do things like add keyword focus for you. You'll be able to adjust the text size and contrast a little bit easier. You can check if links open in a new window, because people using a screen reader of unusual behavior for a link to open that way. They normally just open in the same page, and then they can hear the new page is loaded, but the new tab is more difficult. So what that'll do is it'll add some text on your links to open a new window to let the screen reader know that this is the behavior that's happening. It'll do things like strip out duplicate title attributes that are unnecessary. It'll remove things like tab index for you, like in those gravity forms. And it'll add post titles to those generic read more links that you see a lot. Again, that's a great SEO benefit, as well as screen readers aren't going to know where that link is going to take them if they just hear read more, read more, read more. It's not very descriptive. Again, just reviewing, these are the different tools that I use for testing. The Tenant.io, it's the WordPress plugin you could use, Access Monitor, or you could actually go out to their website and use it if you wanted to. It actually also has an API that you can integrate in with some of your other tools if you do a lot of development with Grunt or Go. The Wave toolbar is a good one. You saw me using HTML code sniffer. Chrome has a browser inspector. There's another tool called Axe. All of these test for around the same things, like I said, about 30% of errors. It really comes down to user interface and what you like to use. I would just take a look at them and pick one, and if that one works for you, I'd stick with that. And then again, that no copy and Chrome Lens were the different vision simulators. All I have for today. Again, I want to thank our sponsors and thank all of you for showing up.
Thank you so much. Q&A time, or
Yeah, Q&A time.
So I've never been here before. So what do you put that out there so that we can?
yeah, this will all be on YouTube.
Okay.
He does it on his personal blog, on
Yeah.
his business blog.
Oh, okay.
We'll post a link in the WordPress or in the meetup.
It's actually already there.
Yeah.
It's actually already
Going
there.
back to contact form 7, couldn't you edit the form to include those alt tags without having to install a plugin to do it for you?
Yeah, you could. The plugin just makes it easier. If you're not familiar, I don't know who's familiar with coding, who isn't.
Okay.
If you just like to install plugins, that will do it automatically. But yeah, otherwise you have to go in there and manually add labels to everything.
Well, that's an easy fix, so I thought it'd be easier than putting in plugins. You have to worry about the plugin updating.
Yeah.
So overall, the WordPress plugin itself, for the I can't remember the name of it. How would you rank that for just a quick get a client up and running and
The WP
fix?
accessibility.
Correct.
Yeah, that in conjunction with finding one of those accessible ready themes that's already pretty much there will be awesome.
WordPress is out of the box and has been kind of had a focus and attention on accessibility. Went through and created a new website. Well, I guess it's not really new anymore, for the Unitarian Church in Iowa City. Chose WordPress as our base because it was already accessible right out of the gate, and then going in and choosing our themes carefully. And so when I went in, actually get an audit and go in, I was pretty confident that just kind of little tweaks here and there. Fighting with some board members about color schemes that were very visible. But that wasn't WordPress's problem.
Are there colors you should avoid? Like red and green?
Yeah, the red and the green, if you don't have some other signification that it's like a different element, if it's not also a different shape or something. Those two colors are really commonly.
I could only see blue and purple. And I was like, no, dude, purple, green, gray, and blue.
Yeah.
So you said earlier that all government sites have to have
these, but the other sites do not have to. But are they starting to regulate that, or
if they get federal funding? So hospitals do a lot for Medicare, Medicaid, and schools get federal funding a lot, so they all have to as well. There have been a lot of cases where just like public sector websites have gotten sued for that, and that's under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Just saying that it's kind of discriminatory if they have a public offering that they're excluding people with disabilities from accessing the website if the website has a service it's available to the public to use. So there have been precedents set for that. It's not like technically the law yet though. It's kind of a gray area right now. So you want to make sure you get on the right side of it, definitely. They have been making an example out of some sites that were particularly bad, and just especially if they're like really wealthy companies or organizations, just to kind of send the message across. But
yeah, a couple of years ago, the American Organization for the Blind sued Target and won under the ADA. At the time, it was kind of a stretch, it's kind of on a technicality, but since the laws and lawyers have kind of started to catch up, and now that case was difficult, but because they won, that set that legal precedent, and other laws are kind of going and catching up. So pretty much, if you have anything that's public facing, then it would be at minimum in your moral interest to be accessible.
And like I said, other countries do have the laws in place for a more broader scope already. So if your site sells things, to places in other countries, that's going to be something you have to consider as well, those laws.
Do people use that on their site to market to that particular brand? People saying I'm accessible too?
Yeah, it would be great if you, after you go through these steps, to put like an accessibility statement in the footer of your website or somewhere that kind of says, I've gone through these guidelines to the best of my ability. I want to make sure the site is accessible. If you have any problems, reach out to me, and kind of start that dialogue with people so that they know they can reach out to you if they do find a problem. They won't run to their lawyers, and it'll show a good intent as well for if you do happen to have a settlement, which you probably wouldn't if you've gone through all that effort to make sure your site is accessible. But if you could point to something like that, saying that you tried your best, there is a lot of guidelines, there's a lot of disabilities, there's a lot of scenarios. So, it's very possible that something could get missed, but as long as you are reaching out to people, letting them know you are willing to fix problems that they run into, you should be good.
So if we wanted to hire an accessibility expert to audit a site so that we could do that, do some due diligence.
Yeah.
Who would we call? Or is there?
Yeah, I have done that for other companies, but there's other companies out there as well that are really good. I recommend if you can afford them. DQ is a really good one. They create their own tools. They actually have some of those browser plugins and things. They can do a lot of blogs, and they're spelled DEQUE. There's like SSB Bart Group as well, who's produced a lot of really great things, and they do consulting like that. There's the Paciello Group. It was a little bit different to spell. So yes, there are some other groups out there you can take a look at, or you could go local and talk to me about it.
You can go to the monthly accessibility meetups.
Right.
This is a kind of maybe hopefully not a one-time joining between accessibility and WordPress. But,
You're always welcome back.
We'll have to work on those meeting conflicts.
There's always technical issues the first time.
So tell me about that meetup.
Yeah, I do have that A11Y user experience inclusive design meetup every month.
And explain why the A11Y exists.
Right, yeah, if you're not familiar with A11Y, that's actually called a numeronym. There's 11 letters between the A and the Y, and that's just shorthand for accessibility. Just makes it a little bit easier to type. It's good for tweets. So I have a Twitter. I usually tweet out news and things like that about accessibility. And if you follow that hashtag, you'll find a lot more information from really smart people too. So that's what the A11Y is for. And we have those meetups every month, usually at Geometric Building down in the Nubo area.
Yeah, some other pneumonyms that you may have heard before would be L8N for localization or I18N for internationalization. And those words are really long to type. And we're all techies and we love our acronyms.
Are they in the English dictionary yet?
In the hacker dictionary, probably, but...
This is very interesting because being new to building a website and what I'm doing, I would never even thought that a blind person was going to be on the internet. That just blows my mind.
The internet is debatably becoming a human right, just like water and electricity. So why would you deny water and electricity to somebody who's blind?
Right.
So you can argue whether it should have that kind of status. But that argument is still being made, whatever side you're on.
I had thought about branding, and I had thought at least about elderly, and also thought from a philanthropic standpoint, done some research, and there was definitive stuff online that said, this is not the font to use, this is what folks will need, and my dad has macular degeneration, so I was thinking in terms of, and I'm getting older, like, I would like to not have to have my glasses on. So I never really thought about it though from a vision impaired standpoint either. I also, while I was thinking about that, going, I probably don't need to do all that. I think moving into that and being socially aware, and what I did was I kept the background simple. I picked 3 colors, that's branding savvy, and thought the less I put on there, the bigger the print anyway. People don't need to be bogged down and following some SEO things. So I thought, too, that was helpful.
Yeah, that sounds.
This was really great presentation. It helped me out tremendously to be thoughtful of people that have that I want to help anyway with what I'm doing.
And really, unless you're targeting a specific industry that has like their own guidelines, like if you're targeting the federal government, you have Section 508. If you're targeting schools, that's 504.
Yeah.
They're all kind of trying to be subsets of the WCAG guidelines anyway. So if you go in and you just target the WCAG, and there's different grades. So you're just coming in and at the very least, find the guidelines for WCAG 2.0 A level. And that's the bare basics. That's the, I'm trying it all. You've just hit A. Generally, sites AA is kind of, that's the one that's going to, if you hit AA, or any federal guideline or any UK guidelines, they're all subsets of AA. They come up just short of full AA compatibility, the majority of them. And then if you're really gung-ho, and your site can, when you get into really multimedia sites, AAA gets really difficult. And some of simpler kind of brochure sites, 2 or 3 page sites, AAA becomes a little bit easier. And that's the full blower.
So I take it we're not going back to Flash, huh?
No. That is actually one of the reasons why Steve Jobs was so against Flash.
Absolutely.
Other than it made the iPhone slow.
But no, it's just kind of opened up my eyes, because how do I know somebody that I'm not doing a project for is not disabled and that's why I'm doing the project for? They may not be telling me that.
Yeah.
So when I send my information to them, they have to have a way
so there's so many disabilities
to have access to it. And I didn't even think
colorblindness.
of that. Yeah.